Well, I'm glad to be here, and something I talk about frequently over the last 35 years. And this is really showing, do these things in the Old Testament have scientific validity, and can you use them in some kind of a apologetic way? And I'll let you decide as I go through them. So I'm going to stop after the original diet, and we'll talk a little bit, and then talk about dietary food laws. And really, what I'm going to spend most of my time at today is talking about fasting. So, I mean, this is the original dietary prescription in Genesis 1:29. And God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which there is fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be food." So really, the original dietary prescription here is fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And honestly, we're doing very poorly at eating that here in this country at the moment. Now, the next verse talks about animals. Interesting. The beast of the earth, fowl of the air, everything that creepeth, that has life, I give them the green herb for meat. And it was so. Now, that's interesting. If God gave us the green herb and that's it, we'd all be dead because we can't get calories out of green herbs like these other animals can. What's the difference? Well, many animals and insects have bacteria in their intestine to help them break down all that fiber and get calories. We just don't. If all you ate was salad, you could eat 10 pounds of salad a day, just keep eating it and you'd die of starvation because you just can't get enough food value from it. All right. And then in Genesis 9, God adds in meat, which is a good thing for us generally as humans. And then the reason for all of this is in Genesis 9:1. What does he have for us to do? We're supposed to fill the earth and rule over it. All right. Now, why are greens so important? Every time I give this talk, I encourage myself and I start eating greens more. 1 cup of spinach. 1 cup of spinach is a small bowl. It is 0.4% of the calories you need all day. 1/2 of 1% of the calories. And what does it have? 181% of the vitamin K, 56% of vitamin A, 15% of folate, 14% of vitamin C and K, and then it has lutein, and it has magnesium and iron. It has lots of things in it. And it comes from 1/2 of 1% of what you eat all day. I'm telling you right now, if you don't eat spinach or have some kind of a green every day, you're missing out. I mean, it's part of the original dietary plan. I'm just going to go through a few fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices. This is a study done by a friend of mine that gave these mice a cancer-causing agent, and it gave them all cancer in about 15 weeks. And then they gave them 1.2 milligrams of rosemary, and it cut the cancers in half. And then it gave them 3.6, and the cancer didn't hardly get started. I'm not convincing you to eat rosemary, though that would be a good thing. So many spices do this. It's incredible how many of them work like this. Turmeric is probably, to me, for the last 15, 20 years, I think turmeric is the anti-cancer spice for us. It does so many things. And you find it in curry. It's 28%. It's the yellow color. It has these curcuminoids in them that do very special things. Now, this is just a study. It was done, I don't know when, 2005. It's 20 years old. And its curcumin suppresses this inducted breast cancer in these little nude mice. And so this is what it did. So you give the placebo, you just give them the cancer-causing agent, 95% of them got cancer. And then you gave them Taxol, which is a very common anti-cancer drug, and it cut it down to 75%. When you gave them curcumin, it dropped to less than 50%. This happens very often, that some of our herbal supplements, when we take them as medications, work with the drugs themselves, and you take both of them together, and it drops to about 20%. Now, the thing is, I'm just showing you a couple of things here. How many people eat rosemary? Almost nobody. Turmeric, you can take it as a supplement. You can cut it up. You can just eat it. You can use it to color things. And you can use it all kinds of ways. When I'm in India, they use turmeric every single day. I mean, everything that you eat over there has turmeric in it. All right. But here is just this is 20 years old. This is an overall benefits of fruits and vegetables. I mean, it showed a reduction of heart disease, 15%, stroke, 27%, it delayed cataracts, asthma, bronchitis, COP, prevented and treated high blood pressure. Now, this is just common nutrients. I'm going to try and move my bar here, get it out of my way. Beta carotene is the orange color in fruits and vegetables. Alpha carotene is about the same. Lutein is kind of yellow. Lycopene is reddish. Now, the blue is low. They set that at 1. And then if you ate medium or high levels of fruits and vegetables in general, then this is just showing cancer association. Cancer dropped by 50%. Now, this is simply saying eat more fruits and vegetables. Alpha carotene's the same, lutein's the same, lycopene. I had a student from Kuwait, and he had macular degeneration. Put your hands right here to look, and that's what macular degeneration does. You can see some stuff out here, but nothing in the middle. And I said, how did this happen? You're a wealthy guy from Kuwait. He said, we're wealthy, and fruits and vegetables were eaten by the poor people. Said all we eat was meat. I said, you're kidding. No. And so he lost his eyesight, and it's permanent, so he can't get it back. All because he didn't eat spinach or some other fruit and vegetable that has this in it. This is one of my favorite studies. It's from 1995. It was done by James Anderson, and he worked for me for quite a while with raisins. It's 38 clinical studies, went on for a couple of decades. They used soy protein isolate. Some used textured vegetable protein. They found out that in 34 of 38 studies, that soy lowered cholesterol. What are you laughing at? No effect in 4 studies. In all studies, cholesterol dropped. Now, this is the most interesting thing. I was convinced that this was God's gift to humanity a few years ago. I still think it's good. This is 95. It's getting close to 25, 30 years old. If you had slightly elevated cholesterol, 120 to 198, and you ate soy, it dropped by about 10 milligrams per deciliter. Okay, but if your blood cholesterol is higher, it dropped by more. If it was higher, it dropped by even more. If your cholesterol was really high in all these studies and you ate soy, it dropped it by over 70 milligrams per deciliter. We had one of these studies was done in my lab at the University of Illinois, and he had a cholesterol of 600. 600. It's supposed to be below, it's down here, it's down in the hundreds. And so he took 1 ounce of soy protein for, it was about 30 days. His cholesterol dropped from 600 to 300 in 30 days. I saw that, and this guy thought, that's amazing. Now, is more better? It depends. Sometimes you take this much, it helps you, this much, it helps you, and take this much, and you're dead. It kills you. But here's soy at 25. That's a little less than an ounce. It dropped it by, almost 10. And then this is about 1.5 ounces. And this is like 2.5 ounces. And so it seemed to do better. The more people ate, the better. And so I use this as an example, but there's just lots of foods out there that would do the same kind of thing as soy. Where do you get it from? You're aiming for 25 grams a day. And so if you eat nuts or soybean or soy flour, you can easily get that much. And then the last thing I want to talk about is nuts in this thing. This is a lot of studies. So this is 76, the Adventist study, 35,000 people, 5 times a week, lowered heart disease. The nurses study in 84, 86,000 women, 5 ounces a week, 35% reduction in heart disease. Iowa women's study, 86, 35,000 women, consumed 4 times a month. They saw a 40% reduction in CHD. The physicians, finally some men here, Physicians Health Study, 21,000 men consume nuts 2 or more times a week, 30% reduction. Which nuts are the best? They're all good. But color in them basically is what does it in most of these, not all of them. But this is looking at walnuts. There was an 18% reduction. This 9% reduction, 17% reduction. And then almonds, it was 14% reduction. So they all seem to work. So This is what I want to end with on this first section, and then we're going to let you talk and see what you think about this. This is the 2020-2025 dietary guidelines for Americans. It's showing how well we're eating. How well are we doing? Well, we're supposed to be up here at 100%. This is total vegetables. 10% of the population is getting enough vegetables. Now, the goal here is only 3 servings of vegetables a day. And so most people just aren't getting any. And then here's the dark green vegetables, we're at about 20. Here is the red orange vegetables, we're about 5. Beans and lentils is better, 15. Here's the starchy vegetables. And then here are just other vegetables at 30%. And then fruits were at about a little less than 20%. So my goal here, talking about apologetic value, is what the Bible says true? It is. I could spend, a month just talking about this part of it, but I didn't want to. I just wanted to show you this, that we're not making it. What are we getting? What's this? We're getting a lot of this. That's refined grains. This is the only one that has a maximum. All these other ones are minimums you want to get more of than the minimum. This was a maximum you don't want to get more of. Where are we getting our calories? Empty refined grains, white bread, white crackers, cookies, cakes, pies, cereals that are overprocessed. This is where we're getting all of our calories from, but it doesn't have any nutrients in it. So I'll end with that, and I'll say, before I get into the next part here, comments, questions, what do you think about that? I'll let you just unmute your mic if you have a comment or a question.
Jim, what do you know about capsaicin for cancer? I had a friend who overheard some nurses when he was being treated at MD Anderson for his prostate cancer. They were talking about some article that said capsaicin was good. So he started eating I think he was eating a habanero pepper every day. And he thinks it might have helped, but I don't know. He passed away eventually, but he lived for a number of years on this pepper diet.
Well, I think capsaicin is very valuable, and it has been shown there's just thousands of studies on capsaicin and what it does. I don't know if it's that much more special than all of these other fruits and vegetables that are out there. My mother had cancer 10 times. She got cancer, and the doctor said, you better put yourself in order. You got 6 months. I said, no, you're not 6 months. So she had 6 different kinds of cancers. We just kept working with her year after year. It was over a decade. When she finally died, I thought, that's odd, Mom. You just died. How did you do that? Because she was changing her diet, doing all of these things. Capsaicin is one of them. And I think capsaicin is valuable. And I think it's part of many great foods. And so it does a lot of things too. It's a pain reliever. So I think it does have a valuable benefit with cancer reduction, as well as, 50 other foods.
Ben Clifton, is that you? If so,
that is
just
me.
Speak.
Yeah, that's me. Hey, Jim, this is really fascinating. I'm really excited that you're giving this talk. It's kind of off the beaten path, but it's really wonderful. My question is, can you comment on a very popular, I guess I'd call it a diet these days? It's the keto diet. What are your thoughts there?
That's the last part of this discussion, and we'll get into the keto diet. You can ask me more questions if it doesn't get answered. But
Okay.
I am very pro keto, even if it's not keto, just eating less carbs, for the reason of, you look at America, half of the American adults are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Half of us are that way. I was told by the doctor my blood sugar was high 25 years ago when I was a young man in my 40s. And I said, what do I do about it? He says, nothing, you're not diabetic yet. I don't want to be diabetic. What can I do? And he goes, no, nothing you can do. So at that time, I started eating less carbs. I didn't go keto, but I started eating less carbs. My blood sugar is now better 25 years later than it was when I saw him originally and found out my blood sugar was high. Half of the people that have high blood sugar don't know it. And it's really easy to test just to find out. But so basically, I'll get into that later, but keto is actually great for a number of reasons, and we'll talk about it later. Anything else before I go on to my next section?
Yes.
I've got a question.
Yeah, Karen?
Yes. How do you compare almond milk with eating almonds straight?
Yeah, almond milk is absolutely nothing. It has a glass of almond milk has about 4 almonds in it. It's almond flavored water. And unless you get the sugary sweetened kind, there's only 40 calories in it. There's not many calories there. So basically, it's a very expensive almond flavored coloring if you want to put it in your smoothie, but it has not the benefits of eating almonds. So that's a very good question, though, because you don't know. When almonds were sued and they went through some courts, the head of the, I think it was Blue Diamond Almond, made a statement in the court proceedings that there's 4 almonds in a glass of almond milk, that it's just not much almond there. So, yeah, good question.
I have a question. If you've got some time.
Yeah.
Regarding the nuts, I thought some nuts were much better than other nuts. Like, for example, what about macadamia nuts versus all the other nuts? Or
Yeah, macadamias are right here, and they're beneficial. Actually, all the nuts seem to be beneficial. It's the coloring that seems to do it. Not here on the macadamias, but it's the skin
I think
here.
you got muted, Jim. We're not hearing you.
and I think these nuts, like the almonds, you should leave the skin on because that's where the nutrients are.
Yes. I don't see that I'm muted.
I hear you.
No,
Oh,
I
I did too.
think it was us.
I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see I was muted. Okay, so they are different. They all do different things. They're all very good. I think that my favorite cashews are one of the least valuable because they don't have any color and they don't have a lot of the benefit. They don't show up on a lot of these charts like the green ones when you have pistachios with that color. The color on the outside of these seems to do it. So yeah, some are better than others. I think probably if I had to pick the best ones, I think walnuts are probably the best. But again, they're all good. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, so I noticed that you didn't mention raisins in your talk. So tell me why I should eat Sun-Maid raisins.
I don't work for Sun-Maid anymore. I was
I
the head of
hated raisins. Go ahead, sorry.
I was the head of the California Raisin Marketing Board, the Dancing Raisins in the 1980s. And that's the last time one of those was shown in 86. So if you remember the Dancing Raisins, you are old. And so we did so many studies on raisins. Raisins are really highly beneficial for a number of things. We did studies on heart disease and cancer and diabetes of all things. Well, they're full of sugar. Yeah. But if the sugar is wrapped in all the fiber and all the phytonutrients and all the nutrients, the glycemic index was how fast it makes your blood sugar goes up. It's 49, which is low. And so, are they good? Yeah, they're amazingly good, beneficial food, even for people who have diabetes that don't want the sugar. They have a lot of sugar, but yeah, we've done many studies. And so they have all kinds of benefits. And so I do recommend eating them highly.
I will say one more thing, if I may, and that is that I did a study several years ago on selenium in the diet. Selenium is, again, one of those fine-tuning things where you're supposed to have a certain minimum amount, but not a maximum amount. And it turns out that Brazil nuts apparently are very high in selenium. One of them. So, I mean, I don't know if you have any comments on that, but.
Yeah, I don't. And so the thing is that when we eat white flour, white sugar, processed foods, and over half of our diet is highly refined foods. Cakes, candies, cookies, pies, fried, cooked things that are made with white flour. And there's very little nutrition. When you take flour and you make it to white flour, you lose 60 to 80% of the nutrients or more. And so that's where we're getting our calories. If we just eat whole foods, it doesn't really matter which one. Like you said, some of them are higher in different nutrients than others. But let me go on to the second part and we can talk about this again.
I think
But
Carrie had a
Carrie
question.
Smoke has a question.
Yes, I have a question. Most of my career was analyzing data from clinical trials. So I'm very familiar with like the graphs that you're showing. And I just, looking at them, wonder, just adding nuts, if you're eating a bad diet and you just add nuts, is it really going to be effective, or is really a total lifestyle change needed, like including exercise?
Well, I teach, it didn't come up in my bio, but for the last 3 years, I've been teaching. I run a master's program in functional and integrative medicine at John Patrick University. And so I teach doctors, nurses, dietitians, and people about lifestyle medicine, which is changing your whole lifestyle so that you be healthier. And that's what I wanted this talk to be about, but we decided not to. I can come back and do that. My very last slide is going to talk about how we should spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless until the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. So yes, you want to make big changes. Some have pay better dividends than others, but just the fact of taking a handful of almonds and eating it every day will make a positive benefit in your life. A much better benefit if you change all kinds of things to give your gut microbiome lots of fiber and roughage to work with. It's just much better. So yes, a total lifestyle thing. And again, I can come back and talk about my very last slide later, which is exactly your question. All right, my second part of this then, and I started studying this when I was a young nutritionist 40, 45, 50 years ago. And it's about Leviticus 11, where it says clean meat splits the hoof and chews the cud. Why? What does that do? Clean fish have fins and scales. Why? And is it really true? All birds of prey there's no clean bird mentioned in the Bible. They're all birds of prey that you're not supposed to eat. So let's look at these three things very quickly. Leviticus 11, clean meat splits the hoof, chews the cud. Unclean meat does not split the hoof and chew the cud. Specifically forbidden are rabbits and pigs. We'll talk about that in a second. Unclean food walks on paws. Oh, what does a pawed creature do? It eats other creatures. It has paws. And animals that eat other animals are unclean, no matter what, bird, fish, animal. And then morphological differences actually have physiological differences. We're going to talk about just a few of those. Unclean animals are herbivores. They are ruminants, and there are a very small percentage of the population of animals that are clean, and they're herbivores that are ruminants. Unclean are carnivores. All right, so here's the lowly little rabbit. A rabbit eats its own poop, and generally we do not. And so it isn't a ruminant. It doesn't chew it and swallow it and chew it and swallow it. It poops and eats the poop, and it gets the bacteria from the feces that help digest and break down all those fibers that we can't break down. So that's the way they're kind of like a ruminant. They don't spit it up. They poop it out and then eat it back. I say generally don't, because I walked into my son's house. I swung open the door, and he's grabbing the dog. He's hitting the dog, and the baby had just grabbed a little piece of poo and shoved it in its mouth. And so I picked up the baby, and I'm taking my finger and I'm pulling poo from around his two front teeth. And his mother comes to the door and says, "What have you been feeding the children?" "Nothing, but he did eat a little bit of poo." She took him upstairs, tried to wash his mouth. I said, "You got any alcohol?" "No, we don't have alcohol in this house." Well, so she cleaned his mouth out. I have been known to experiment on the children, so it's logical that she'd say if he's, upset that I might be feeding him. So rabbits, they're odd. Then all carnivores are eating fish that eat that, they eat that, and toxins build up in their body. They just do. In the fat of all these carnivores, they build up toxins in their body. Polar bear is no different. Polar bear liver actually is toxic, not because of toxins. It's the vitamin A. It has so much vitamin A that when explorers would go up there and eat the liver of them, they'd start their skin's falling off, and they're having all kinds of disease from eating the polar bear liver. Pork is interesting. I think the pork we have in this country, because of the good animal husbandry that we have, is fine to eat. And I think it's probably good. I don't eat much of it. I eat it once in a while. But pigs in general, we'll look at their digestive tract in just a second here. But you will hear about swine flu, trichinosis. You just don't get trichinosis from pork that has been raised by good animal husbandry in this country. You can get it by if you eat wild pigs, you don't cook the meat enough, you get trichinosis. There's an increased cancer risk with all the meats that are processed, the ham and the bacon. And those have been, the World Health Organizations and others have said, really don't eat the processed meats, or don't eat much of it. And then, they harbor parasites and different viral things. Their digestive system is very short, and it's like most carnivores. It just doesn't digest the food well because they're usually eating easily digested food. So here's the three groups. These are the ruminants. It's these 5 that we can eat. The other 500 that are out there, you're not supposed to eat according to the Bible. Now, the monogastrics, like pigs and dogs and us, Now, the Bible doesn't talk about clean birds. The Jews themselves have declared these things clean, even though the Bible didn't say, but the monogastrics are not. These are, and these hindgut fermenters, these don't chew the cud. You know, the cow or the horse have fermentation later on. We'll show you here in just a second. And then rabbits, where he told you about. But what's the difference in these things? So here is a sheep. When you look at herbivores, their intestinal tract is 10 times the length of their body, 10 times. With carnivores, it's about 2 to 4 times. So you have this short thing here with I got my thing with a dog, and then here is next to the dog is the pig, and then here's ours. So ours, you know, ours looks more like a carnivorous than it does this sheep. This sheep has this huge lung. It has a split stomach. Well, what makes these ruminants different? Their stomach is split. So they keep eating this first stomach, they spit it up, they eat it, spit it up, eat it, spit it up. They keep doing that. And they digest the carbohydrates that we cannot. And then it goes into a second stomach, third, and then it goes through this long intestinal tract and then into their colon. A horse doesn't do that. A horse has this, it only has one stomach, and it has this huge colon. So it's able to take grasses and get food out of them that we cannot because of the way they're designed. But horse isn't a clean food either. So the things that he told them, the split hoof and chewing the cud, it's really the chewing the cud that does this, that has, when you chew the cud, you have this kind of a stomach. Horses can't spit anything up. They gag and kill themselves if they try and reverse. Their esophagus does not reverse, where sheep, it does. It goes back and forth, and the food goes from the stomach back out, back to the stomach. All right, so there's physiological differences from those things that the Bible said to eat and not to eat. So now fish are the same kind of way. Unclean are catfish, shellfish, bottom feeders, large predatory fish. They're unclean. What is clean? What's the difference between these with fins and scales? Now, this is just a short piece. If you'd like to see all this data, you can go to the web and just type in Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2010, and the whole thing will come up. You go to Appendix 11, and it's got 20 times what I have here. But what I want to show you is this. Here's the ones with fins and scales, these top 4. They have lots of fish oil, which is the good stuff. You want to have a lot of that. And they don't have hardly any mercury. Salmon. People say don't eat fish more than once a week or twice a month. Well, if it's salmon, eat it every day and you'll be fine because it doesn't have the toxins. Now, here are the predatory fish, swordfish and shark. They still have the EPA and the DHA, the fish oil, but they have 150 milligrams of mercury. I would say just don't eat the sharks. If you want to eat shark, just taste it, do it once. But then, do it once every 6 months if you're going to eat it. Don't make it a common thing. Now, this is actually a clean fish, tuna. It has fins and scales. It's got higher amounts. So people say, should I eat tuna fish every day for lunch? No, especially white albacore tuna. It's got quite a bit of mercury in it. But generally speaking, what the Bible says is immensely clear, and it is, throughout all the data, very consistent, that these fish with fins and scales are not carnivorous fish. These carnivorous fish don't have scales, and they have huge amounts of mercury in them. All right. Now, birds, there's nothing in there about birds. It says birds of prey, don't eat them. It doesn't mention clean birds. It just doesn't talk about that, and the Jewish tradition has come up with some guidelines on that. So, Exodus 23:19, Deuteronomy 14, you shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. That one sentence became the biggest part of the Jewish food laws. It's not a food law. It doesn't say don't do it. It says don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Why? I mean, is that just a thing like you don't want to take the thing that's supposed to nourish this baby and boil him and kill him in it, do you? I think it's that. I think that's what it was doing. They took this one sentence and said you can never have meat and milk in the same meal. Wait a minute, that's not what they're saying. You don't kill a goat in its mother's milk. They got from that you don't have meat and you don't have milk. So Jewish kosher food, they have 2 kitchens, 2 sets of dinnerware, 2 sets of cooking equipment. You have this for cooking milk and this for cooking meat, and they're two separate things. You don't have them at the same meal. You have a milk meal, you have a meat meal. I go, what in the world? This is religion gone wild, I think, where you take a sentence. It's the main part of their food laws, but I don't think it's food law at all. So this is where it came from. I don't think it's a Jewish food law, so I don't even talk about it. I don't see any good evidence that would help support this. So, all right, now, number two, is there apologetic value in the food laws, the fish? It's amazing. How would they know that? If God didn't put it in there, how would those people know to say that? I mean, how would they know? On the meats, on the fish, they would just have no way to know that. That is a great apologetic to me, that the Bible, well, it was written by men, who knows what it is? You can't trust it. Well, yeah, you can. And it is obviously inspired by God. I think that's a great apologetic. Okay, comments on that one before we go on to fasting?
Yeah, I have a question regarding milk. My endocrinologist said if you have osteoporosis, you should get a lot of calcium, and you get a lot of calcium from milk. So do you consider milk a healthy food, and is low fat milk better than whole? There's so many controversies because low fat milk takes out all the good nutrients out of the milk. So what is your
okay comment? I've been a consultant for the Dairy Council for 20 years, and I'll give you a short piece of it, but I have a 300 slide presentation on this that I can give for 3 hours, but I'm going to give you 1 minute of it. Okay. And that is this, that whole milk, fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, they were the three killers in the 50s and the 60s. Some people think they are today. They are not. And so the idea that we cut out milk because, man, it's got the three killers, it's a triple kill you. I thought that 25 years ago. I don't now. I don't think that's wrong at all. I drink whole milk, but I ferment mine. I have a little bit of kefir grains, put the kefir grains in there, let it sit for a day, put it in the refrigerator, pull it out. It takes me 1 minute to set it. I filter it, put the grains back in, put some milk in it, set it on the counter, and I drink the kefir. I think fermented milk is one of the healthiest things you can do for your digestive tract. And the very last slide in this presentation, I'll talk about another presentation I have on body, mind, and spirit, and how the whole thing works together. And it all comes from your intestine being in good shape. Is milk good? I was against it when I was a young dietitian. Right out of school, going, this is bad. And I thought, what's bad about it? Everything I looked at was bad, wasn't. And so I give long talks, and I've had people hate me because of this. Milk is bad. It's full of hormones. No, it's not full of hormones. They shoot it full. No, they don't shoot it full of anything. They really don't. And you can't take milk that has any antibiotic in it. If you take it in and you've got this big truck full of milk and they find any antibiotic in there, the whole truck gets thrown out. They're very careful. And so is milk good? Yeah, I think it is. And fermented milk is even better. And I prefer whole milk completely over the skim stuff, because like you mentioned, it has a lot of nutrients in the fat that you don't get. And the fat is very good for you. We can do a whole talk on the benefits of fat in dairy. Okay.
Maybe you can maybe you can give us, or you can give Kirby the publication you have on it.
We've done a couple of. My students and I did a publication about 2 years ago on comparing milk to milk alternates. And we talk about almond milk and soy milk and all the different milks that are coming out compared to dairy milk. And there's no comparison. Dairy milk is just much better than any of those other ones. Generally, milk is consumed without sugar 90% of the time. These other ones are consumed with sugar 90% of the time, or about that. I mean, it's a huge amount. You look at the store and it's all flavored milk alternates, and there's just a little bit of flavored milk and all this regular milk. So yeah, I can send some stuff to Kirby.
Okay.
Interesting. And one question here. What about eggs, Jim? Over the years have been sort of eggs are no good for you because there's so much cholesterol, and now you're hearing it sort of turn the other way. What's your view on consumption of eggs?
We were completely wrong about that for 40 years. And you can eat 10 eggs in the morning, and it's probably one of the best things you can do. Don't have the refined cereal. Don't have the refined white flour. Have eggs, and you will live, many years longer, and your body will thank you for it. So the idea that they're full of cholesterol, well, the cholesterol you eat's not bad. It doesn't do anything bad to you. And I've got a talk with 500 slides on eggs and dairy, and that it's not bad. And so I'd be happy to talk about that too. But I think eggs are just one of the best things, especially older adults. You've got older people that aren't eating enough. They're getting skinny and they just can't eat enough. The best thing to do is eat 2 or 3 eggs in the morning, and then whatever else you want to do the rest of the day, do it, but get the eggs in, because they're full of the best protein and full of all kinds of nutrients that we don't get a lot of other places. So it's a good question. Okay. I'm almost out of time here. I have 3 minutes and I have 2 hours worth of fasting to talk about. So we're going to be here. I show it's 3 minutes till 10 at my time. And so we're asking questions through it. So I figure I could go a little bit longer, but we'll see. This has got a lot of information in it. All right. Fasting. Jesus never told us to fast. Never. He just assumed it happened, and he told us how to do it. He never said do it, but he assumed we would be doing it. And this says, Matthew 6:16, and when you fast. He just assumed people were. Everybody fasted. All the Jews fasted. Do not look gloomy as hypocrites. Oh, look at me, poor me. I'm fasting. I feel so bad. Am I a good person? Do you all think this is wonderful? That's not good, because he said you're getting your reward from them. Your Father who's in heaven will give it to you in secret. Just do your fasting in secret and wash up. Jesus just told us what not to do when you do it. And then he came to him and said, your disciples don't fast. And he says, the day when the bridegroom is taken away, they'll fast. But right now they're with me, so they're not fasting. And then Paul urge them, take some food. It has been 14 days since you've eaten. Boy, that's a long fast. Well, they were dying on a ship, and they were stuck in the sea, and they just hadn't eaten for 14 days, and he knew they were going to crash and get off the ship. And he said, let's eat. So it's told them to eat. So, I mean, you can go for a long time without food, honestly. Reasons to fast. I mean, Joel talks about return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Repentance. Fasting goes with repentance, saying no to your body. It's an amazing thing to me when I lose control of my body in some other way, in any other way. When you start controlling yourself by saying, no, you're not going to eat now. Your body goes, what? I want to eat. No, you're not going to eat. So repentance, it works. And then when they were sick, I wore sackcloth. I afflicted myself with fasting. I prayed and bowed my head. Why does that make God look better at you? Not at all. It makes you look more consistently at God and what you should be looking at. So repentance, there's fasting there. Paul said, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I might be disqualified. Keeping our body under our just natural urges under control is important, and fasting is an amazing thing that does that. When your body goes, I'm hungry, go, no, you can't have anything. And then this is what I'm talking about. Isaiah 58, whole chapter is about fasting. You ought to read it. The first part says, don't fast this way. And then in verse 6, it starts testing how to fast. Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bonds of wickedness? Wow. To undo the straps of a yoke? Whoa. To let the oppressed go free and break every yoke? That's what fasting does for us. When we say no to food, it starts breaking all these other things that are on us by us just saying no. Now, here's the verse I want to talk about. This whole talk is about this. It's one sentence. Then, when you fast, your light will break forth as the morning, and thy health shall spring forth speedily. Really? What does that have to do with all this other stuff about fasting? That is thrown in there. And I'm telling you, that is the most true statement of any one I see in the Bible. And we're going to take the next 3 hours and tell you about it. and they shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your reward. This sentence, Isaiah 58:8, your health will spring forth speedily. I'm not going to get through all this, I don't think. I shrunk it down. Like I said, I've got hundreds of slides on fasting, and I just put a few of them here. And I'm going to talk about the multitudinous benefits you get from fasting. Well, Okay, this is from 2019. It's an alternative treatment method for physicians for a variety of diseases. This is, again, I don't have time to talk about this. There's the alternate day fasting. You eat this day, you don't eat the next. You eat this day, don't eat the next. It is brutal. I've tried it. I can't do it. And then this modified fasting, just cut one day down to 20 or 25% and then go back. And in 2 days a week, you cut it to 25%. The other 5 days you eat full. That's a little difficult too. This is my favorite, time restricted fasting. Does it do anything? My last slides will show you that it does. That just shrinks it. Instead of eating at 6 in the morning, having lunch, having dinner, getting a snack at 8 before you go to bed, and you eat for 18 hours a day, and you don't eat for 12 or for 18, 19, 20, for about 6. You go to bed and you don't eat, and you wake up and eat. So if the worst thing we can do is eat in the morning, eat at noon, eat in the evening, and then eat before you go to bed is the absolute worst. The best thing to do is time restricted. Only eat for 6 hours a day. I eat between 8 and 2 or between 12 and 6. Cutting it down to 8 hours or 6 hours is extremely beneficial, and we'll show you why in just a minute. There's other kinds of fasting, as you know, religious fasting, Ramadan, and a variety of things. The Christian church used to do this. We have lost it, all except for the Eastern Orthodox. They still fast all the time. I don't know if any of you are Eastern Orthodox, but my friends that are, they do amazing amounts of fasting. This is what it does, and we'll explain this over the next 3 hours. It reduces insulin resistance and diabetes. Most important, it induces immune and cellular repair. We'll talk about that. It helps and prevent cancer and cancer treatment, regulates cell metabolism, promotes weight loss, reduces oxidative damage and inflammation. The most devastating thing in the lives of every American is this, inflammation and oxidative damage. We'll talk about that. It boosts brain function, which is my favorite, and it improves heart function. All right, this is what happens. This is survival rate. This is a little mouse. Give him all the food he can eat, and in about 32 months, it's 50% of them are dead. You cut back a little bit, they live longer. They live longer. Cut back really a lot, they live even longer. These mice are living 52 months. They've increased their lifespan by about 60, 70%. You can increase your lifespan by 75% if you just quit eating as much if you are a mouse. Now, we're not mice, and so this does really good for little animals. Do we live longer? I think we live healthier. Hopefully you'll get that out of this. Do we live longer? I think we do too, but we just live too long. Mice live for a couple of years and they're gone, and we live for 80. So it's hard to test us on this, but I think we do. All right, here's the health benefits then. These are some of my favorite slides. All the things I teach in the classes I teach at the university now, this is my favorite. Fasting as a therapy for neurological disease. What fasting does, it increases brain-derived neurotropic factor, all of these good things. It decreases glucose and insulin and mTOR. I'll talk about that in a minute. Leptin, these inflammatory cytokines, IL-6 and tumor necrosis alpha. And so it reduces these dangerous things. It increases the good things. I can't think of one disease that you may be suffering with that does not benefit from fasting. There's probably one out there. I just can't think of one. All right, number one thing that fasting does, autophagy, automatically eating yourself. Well, that doesn't sound good, eating myself. Well, autophagy eats the broken, busted pieces within you, and it lets you use them for energy and for building your body. So this is 2013. Shows initiation. Your body starts making this autophagosome. It starts engulfing broken and busted pieces within your cell. It connects with a lysosome. It digests all those broken pieces. You end up here, it breaks open. You take all this junk and you end up with proteins, fats, carbohydrates, nucleic acids that you can use to build your body. That is what all autophagy or autophagy is. It's breaking down broken parts in our body. Now, the effects of calorie restriction on autophagy. This is what happens. When you restrict calories, then insulin goes down. It makes mTOR go down. We'll talk about that again. This is the mammalian target for rapamycin, and it goes down. What does that do? It increases your body's autophagy amazingly. The other thing it does is when you restrict calories, you start burning up your ATP and you have more adenosine monophosphate. When that ratio goes up, you start making AMP kinase. It's the thing that builds up ATP. And what does that do? That kicks in autophagy because you're needing more calories. You need more energy. You've got all these broken things in your body, and your body just goes like that and starts breaking down all that broken pieces and gives it back to you as energy. Okay. The second thing is ketosis. And this is, again, one of my favorite slides ever. I hate to share it, it's so valuable. But what are ketones? They're small molecules used by the body for many things, but they give you energy. There's three. There's acetone, it's a 3-carbon. Acetoacetate is a 4-carbon. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, a 4-carbon. These two, when we talk about ketones, it's these two, mainly these two molecules. Mainly used for energy when carbohydrates are not available. They're produced from fats. Burning up that fat belly we have produces ketones. It's amazing. Next question is, how are they made from fats? I asked that question to everybody that sat next to me on an airplane for 25 years, and nobody had an answer. Why is it? Why is it you start making ketones when you fast? Why is it you start making ketones when you stop eating carbohydrates? What does it? Well, this explains it. This is my second favorite diagram of all time. And I'll explain it to you. This is a cell. This is a liver cell right here. This cell is a brain cell with the brain right there. This is the mitochondria. It's a huge one, but it gives you the picture. Mitochondria and both mitochondria is what makes energy. It's where you get the energy to survive. And so what happens? This is what I learned. When you fast, fatty acids go up in your blood system. Here's your circulating blood system. Insulin goes down. What does that do? That makes this carnitine palmitoyl transferase. This transmitter doesn't let fat come in here to be burned. If you've got sugar around, it doesn't do it. If you've got insulin around, it doesn't do it. You burn the sugar, you use the insulin. When the insulin goes down, then this thing kicks in, and every fatty acid that you eat, every one that's coming out of your body, goes right in and starts getting burned for energy. Okay, this is in the liver, remember. The liver then takes these, you get these fatty acids, they add a coenzyme A to it, it goes right in. And then this acyl-CoA gets broken down 2 carbons at a time into acetyl-CoA. If you know anything about biochemistry, that's the central molecule of energy metabolism. And then, okay, you run out of CoA, just like that, because you're doing this so fast. And so it combines 2 of these acetyl groups to acetyl-CoA, and it gives you more CoA, but you're still running out of CoA. And so you get this hydroxymethylgluteryl-CoA, and it breaks the CoA off. And what do you end up with? Acetoacetate. That is the ketone. So what happens? When you're not eating sugar, insulin goes low, this thing opens up, burns all the fat it can, and it goes so fast it makes these ketones. Interesting thing of God's wonderful creation, your liver cannot use ketones for energy. Your brain can, your muscles can. So who's been interested in this whole ketogenic diet, eating these beta-hydroxybutyrate? People that work out, muscle builders, they want big muscles. They want lots of energy in their muscles. You can get energy this way, but your liver can't use it. So your liver pumps it out into your blood system. Your blood system takes it to your brain. It goes right into your brain. You've got beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate. It puts a CoA on it, breaks it in half. You have acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is the center of making energy in our body. It goes to this tricarboxylic acid cycle. It starts breaking it down 1 piece at a time, which is nice. Because if you take wood and you put it in a fire and you add a match, it burns. Well, good thing we don't explode every time we do that. Or gasoline, you have it in the ground forever, and you start burning gasoline because it explodes. Well, it doesn't do that in our bodies. Our bodies break it down very slowly, 1 little molecule at a time. It goes to electron transport, and this electron transport here makes energy for us in acetyl-CoA. So whether you're fasting or suppose you just go on a ketogenic diet, you're not eating carbohydrates. Insulin goes down, fatty acids go up, and your body starts making these. Ketogenic diet makes ketones. I'll come back to this later, but medium chain triglycerides are small fats. They're 6, 8, and 10 carbons long. They're medium chain. They don't need this to get in. You can eat MCT oil. I have some right here. This is my MCT oil. It's in a powder. It's actually a powder, and it's powdered. I throw it in my smoothie, and it's just a wonderful powder that is MCT oil. And so MCT oil will, because it's short, it'll go right in to the mitochondria and burn for energy. So you eat MCT oil, it just gets burned for energy, and you make ketones with MCT oil. You can also just eat ketones, but they taste nasty and they're very expensive, and only bodybuilders do it. But if your brain isn't working really well, you might want to do it too. All right. So fasting produces ketones. Now, my question was, how long does this start? How long do you have to not eat to start getting ketones? Well, I found a study, and this is impact of intermittent fasting. I always wondered about that. How much do you make ketones? I still have some time. When you don't eat for 18 hours a day or 16 hours, can you make ketones? Well, this little diagram shows you have breakfast, you have blood sugar goes up, you have lunch, your blood sugar goes up, you have dinner, it goes up, you have a snack, it goes up. Then at 10 o'clock, you stop eating. You start eating again at 8 o'clock in the morning, goes up, goes up, goes up. How many ketones did you make? Absolutely none. You don't make ketones. When there's sugar around, you don't make it. So here's a one-day fast. Here's midnight. You get up at 8 o'clock. You don't eat. So you miss breakfast. Within about 4 hours, you start making ketones. You don't eat all day until 12 o'clock at night, and then you eat the next morning. Look at the amount of ketones that you have made in one day of not eating, just one day. And then you have breakfast again, you have lunch, you have dinner. And this is shrinking it down to where you're eating. Well, go down to this one. This is time restricted fasting. This is what I wanted to know. If you just cut your eating to 18 hours a day and keep your fasting to 18 hours a day, and you only eat within 6, here's what happens. So you don't have breakfast and your ketones start going up. Here's noon. You don't eat until 2. You eat from 2 to 6, or 2 to 4 to 8. So you have 3 meals, and then you don't eat for dinner, and then you don't eat breakfast again. And then again, now this day it's starting a little earlier. This is like about maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. You start making ketones, and then all of a sudden you eat again at 2, and it drops, and you have blood sugar coming up, and then you eat, within a 6-hour period. And again, the next day, but you don't have breakfast for, looks like, I'd say 6 to 8 hours, you make ketones. Is this beneficial? This, when we get done with this talk, hopefully I'll get done with this talk, you'll see what ketones do and why every little bit of ketone is beneficial. All right. In addition to energy, what else do ketones do? This is my favorite diagram ever, and it's a little complicated, so don't worry about it when I show it to you. We'll explain. But this came out in 2015 in Medical Hypothesis. Ketosis may promote brain macroautophagy. So it's breaking down the broken parts in your brain and giving you energy. Well, let's look at this. All right, here it is. This is what we said so far. Ketones are an alternate fuel source. They give you energy. They do. But they also, ketones are an amazing property. They will decrease HDAC, which is just histone deacylase. So they decrease that. And what does that do? It protects against ALS and Parkinson's, Huntington's disease, all kinds of diseases. And then ketones will increase hypoxia-induced factor, which makes your blood capillaries expand. You get more blood in your brain. Wow, ketones do that? Yes. And then ketones increase sirtuin-1. Sirtuins are the main regulatory molecules of our body. They tell our body what to do and what not to do. They control everything. Sirtuins. So what do? They decrease apoptosis. That's the natural death of cells. They decrease amyloid beta. That's the stuff you get in your brain when you have Alzheimer's. Really? Yes. increases mitochondrial biogenesis, making new mitochondria to build more energy. And then this CREB goes up and you get long-term potentiation and you increase brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF. That's the thing that causes neuroplasticity. When I was in college, they said, don't drink that drink. You just lost 1 million brain cells and you'll never get them back. That was a lie, because we build new brain cells. We have this brain-derived neurotropic factor that can take a very beat-up brain and it can build new neurons. And you can take someone that has a terrible cognitive impairment, and by doing things like this, they can get their brain function back. It is quite incredible. Now, most important, when you eat ketones, it decreases mTOR. And what does mTOR do when you decrease it? Remember, it makes macroautophagy. You start breaking down your cells, the bad things, broken parts in your cells, and you give it new pieces. So your body can use all those broken pieces for energy or to build itself up again. That is what ketones can do. So are ketones important? My question that came out earlier in the talk, ketones are amazing. Ketogenic diet is good. Fasting is amazing. If you don't fast, you're hurting your body because your body can't eat. Suppose a grocery store, they bring the food in and they put the groceries on the shelves and leave the boxes. And they put the groceries on the shelves and leave the boxes. They put the groceries on the leaves. You go in there after about a week, you can't get to the groceries because there's boxes everywhere. Everything's trashy. So how do you get rid of the trash? One way you get rid of the trash is by macroautophagy. And how do you get that? By quit eating. It's like, don't keep bringing stuff into the store. Clean the store up so you can get to the food to actually use it. So this is my favorite. I could go to bed at night and dream about this diagram. This has so much good information in it about answering questions I had for years. I didn't know how things function. All right, now this just shows you, I wanted to put this one in because it shows you sometimes things are good for you. Oh, that's great, but you don't get enough of it. So can you get enough of these medium chain triglycerides to actually increase brain function? This study was done in 2018. It answered another question for me. Is it actually efficacious to somebody who has mental cognitive problems? Yes, it is. Okay, so this is your brain energy. It needs 88% to run full steam. Here you have a young, healthy person. 95% of their energy is coming from glucose, 5% from ketones, and they're full steam. They're doing good. Here's an older adult. They're down to like 92%. They're losing. They're not using sugar well. Alzheimer's disease is referred to as type 3 diabetes because part of the problem with brain function and not functioning well, Alzheimer's, is that we don't use sugar well. And so, okay, there's no mental problems here, though. Their brain's not working as good. It's still above the 88%. Now, here you drop down. You've got memory problems. Older adults, they're less than 88%. They have memory problems. They're not using sugar well. All of this that we're used to, they used to be able to burn it and use it. They can't. Now, this is what's so wonderful about this study that they did. It was with mentally impaired people. They gave them 30 grams of MCT oil, 30 grams. That's 2 tablespoons. When my father-in-law started having mental issues, and it was hard to get the hospital to do this, would you please? I showed him this study. I said, would you please give him 2 tablespoons of MCT oil every day? Yeah, we will. And it was like pulling teeth and trying to kill people. I couldn't get it done. But it shows that here, all of a sudden, now they're using 7% of the ketones. They've gone up and it's less sugar, and they're back into the above 88%, and their brain starts functioning normally. Wow. 2 tablespoons of this is one of my favorites. It's a powder. It doesn't have any taste to it. And I mix it in my smoothies. I put it in my coffee. Have you ever heard of bulletproof coffee? Bulletproof coffee is where you take coffee and you put coconut oil in it, and you put butter in it. You blend it up, and it's called bulletproof coffee. But it has a benefit in the fact that where do you get MCT oil from? Coconut. Coconut is about 15% MCT. As a matter of fact, This product, most MCT oils are made from coconut. Now they gave them 3 tablespoons, 45 grams, and it went up from about a little 91 up to almost 95. It worked even better. So this whole idea of having a ketogenic diet, fasting to make ketones, or just eating MCT oil to make ketones is amazing. This may be a little difficult, but okay. I got 2 more things to say. Cancer. Fasting with chemotherapy with patients. 6 patients. They fasted them for 2 days to like 5, 6 days before they had chemotherapy. They fasted them 5 hours to 2 days after chemotherapy. It's looking at a variety of things here. The patients had reduced fatigue, weakness. It was amazing. Here's what they found. The red is ad lib. So these are people that were just eating normally and getting chemotherapy. And fatigue was huge. When they fasted them before chemotherapy, it cut it by over 50%. Here's weakness, cut it by 50%. Here's hair loss, didn't do much for your hair. Headaches, it cut it by 50%. Look at nausea. It cut nausea by what, 60, 70, 80%? And then of all things, vomiting, when you have chemotherapy, there was no vomiting in those that fasted before they got the chemotherapy. I worked in a hospital 40 years ago as a young nutritionist. And what did you do? Someone comes in with cancer, you feed them, feed them, feed them. Why? Because they're going to not be able to eat. They're going to get skinny. Want to get them fat now. Feed them, feed them. We just feed them what? Anything. Give them sugar. Give them donuts. Just give them things. And I think, man, that was so bad. You know, we were looking ahead to when they're going to get skinny and weak and they can't digest their food. Feed them now. And that's just not the way to do it. Abdominal cramping, reduced. Sore mouth, cut in half. Dry mouth, cut in half. Short-term memory impairment didn't do much. Numbness did a little bit. Decreased sensations did a little bit. Tingling didn't do anything. And so fasting before you take chemotherapy is an amazing thing to tell anybody before they're going into chemotherapy. You'll just feel better when you get out of the chemo, and it'll work better if you're fasting. All right. Now, what about treating cancer? So this is looking at a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, and metastases of cancer. And these are animal models. It's a systematic review of many studies on a meta-analysis. Here's all these studies. And this is benefit from fasting, reducing reducing the initiation, progression, and metastasis. It reduces all of it. How many you get, how fast it progresses. And so this shows all of these studies. There's about 24 of them here. Every single one was beneficial except for this one. There was one study that showed it wasn't beneficial. And this one here showed it looked like it was about even. All the rest of these, every one of them showed that fasting reduced. Why? Because cancer is a fast-growing molecule that needs sugar. And so one of the things you don't want to give cancer is sugar. If you put people on a ketogenic diet, their sugar drops. And it does all this stuff to stop the beginning of cancer, the progression of cancer, and the metastases of cancer when you fast. All right. Now, there's a couple more things. I just want to show this one. And I have time. It's only 10:30. This is intermittent fasting improves survival after myocardial infarction. And this myocardial infarction is basically one of the many forms of heart disease we have in this country. They did it to these little mice. And so what happened is when you did nothing to the mice after the myocardial infarction and you waited 100 days, that's about a third of the life for a mouse, only 20% survived. When you fasted these little mice, after 100 days, 90% were still alive. Now, again, this is a mouse model. You can't take animal studies and directly apply them to humans, but this is very good information that these mice, after 100 days, 90% are alive if they fasted, and 20% were alive if they didn't fast them. That, for all the reasons we've talked about with those different diagrams I've shown you, it's very beneficial. Weight management, I just want to show you one study, and this is comparing energy restriction just total energy restriction. Cut your calories to 1,200 calories. That's all you're going to get, 1,200 calories. I can't do it. Nothing. That's all you get at 1,200 calories. I've done that for 45 years. We've done that. A calorie, how many calories? We're going to cut your calories. You'll be hungry every day. Every day? Yes, every day you're going to be starving and you're going to cut it. And does it work? No. But what this shows, this is the zero line here of effect on this forest plot. This favors continuous energy restriction. That's going on a calorie restricted diet. Here's intermittent fasting. That's you can eat whatever you want, but you can only eat it in a 6-hour period every day. And this shows that when those people did that, they lost weight better on this eat as much as you want 6 hours a day to this, you can only have 1,200 calories. And you lost more weight by eating everything you want. But people will say, I say, okay, eat breakfast at 8, stop eating at 2. But I'm hungry at night. Okay, start eating at 12 and stop eating at 6. Well, then I'm hungry in the morning. And I say, sometimes you have to tell your body no. Just say no to eating, and you can eat all you want. If you don't eat breakfast, you can eat all you want from 12 to 6, as much as you want to eat. Just eat. Oh, so I mean, yeah, for that whole time you're satisfied. And then for many hours after, you're still full. And so there's a certain part of the day where you don't eat. Are you going to get hungry? Maybe, but not necessarily. Some people that started this, I've had a couple of students over the years that they got down to eating 1 meal a day. What do? I have a big meal at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's all. That's it. No, I eat once a day. That's it. You can do that. All right. Now, here's our conclusion. We're talking about the first dietary prescription. It is true. Does it have a lot of apologetic value? Does it help prove the Bible's true? Well, it does, because we need to do that. Are we eating that way? No, we need to do it. That's why I have that in. I'm hoping to encourage all of you to eat more vegetables and fruits. Second, the food laws. Are they true? Yeah, they are. And do they have apologetic value? Yes, they do. Especially things like fish. I mean, if Moses sitting there writing out Leviticus 11, just doing it in his own power, how would he know any of that? He wouldn't. It has to be divinely inspired or it wouldn't be there. And then last, Isaiah 58:8. When you fast, your health will return speedily. It just will. For all those reasons I just mentioned, does that have apologetic value? It's huge. Catholics used to fast on Fridays and they don't do that anymore. I mean, I was raised as a Methodist and we never fasted at all, until I started studying it as a professor. I didn't fast, but boy, I love fasting now in different ways. Just don't eat. And so, I failed. I ate. Great. Then don't eat for another 18 hours. Oh, that's it? Yeah. I mean, you can't fail at fasting. As soon as you eat something, then you just go, wait a minute. Okay, from this moment, I'm not going to eat for 18 hours. I'm just not going to do it. Okay. And look ahead to when you get to first meal. Fine. Look ahead to when you can eat instead of when you can't eat. And it can be a wonderful thing for everyone concerned. Okay. All right. That's the last part. And it's kind of good now. It's 10:30 for me, but any comments? There's a lot of things to talk about with fasting.
Yeah, I put some stuff in the chat here. My wife put a question and I did too. So I'm diabetic. And one of the first things I was taught when I was trained to take blood sugar and stuff was to be careful of ketones because you can get ketoacidosis, which is life-threatening. And even now, we just went and Googled American Diabetes Association has big warnings against this, Mayo Clinic, almost every medical professional.
A big warning against what?
Against ketones getting too high because it can build up.
Ketones, people that are diabetic die of ketoacidosis, but you cannot put your body into ketoacidosis if you have insulin in your body. You just can't. And so you look at ketones, they get up to a certain level at 7 or 8 or 9. Ketoacidosis is 25. So to get from 7 to 25, unless you are a type 1 diabetic, you have no insulin.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
unless you have type 1 diabetes.
Would you mind repeating the last sentence? Or something blanked out on our
I
screen.
think we have a problem on the sound blanking out here.
Well,
I have no idea what I
so
said.
let me say that Kirk, if he didn't say it already, he has type 1 diabetes.
I have type 2.
Oh,
I have
I thought you
type 2.
had type 1. I'm sorry.
No,
I
I've got type
apologize.
Yeah,
2.
and so that's why I'm
Also,
making this distinction.
Yeah, so my body doesn't
Okay.
make insulin very well.
Exactly. And your body probably makes it just fine. It's just that you don't use it well. And the way you use it well is by fasting. It would do amazing things for you. Can you go into ketoacidosis? I have looked at this. I have asked people, I've studied. Show me a type 2 diabetic that ever went into ketoacidosis. I've never seen it. I don't think it's possible. Because you still have insulin in your body and you still are using it. And so the exact mechanism of ketoacidosis in a diabetic comes from either a type 1 diabetic not taking their insulin, and then you can kill yourself very quickly by not taking it. But I can send you studies that have been done with type 1 diabetics. They put them on a ketone diet, and they did extremely well. They had like 1,000 people in the study. And so we had 1,000 people in the study, and 2 people actually ended up in the hospital because their ketones got off, and they treated them and they went out. So nobody got hurt. Nobody. That's type 1 diabetic. Type 2 diabetic, I don't think it's even possible to do that. Now, so type 2 diabetes, now Canada and the United States are both talking about low carb diets. They both approve them. And my suggestion is for type 2 diabetics is the time restricted fasting is just wonderful. It's wonderful and amazing to what it does. If you want to test your ketones, I've got ketone strips myself. I don't know if you have them. You can buy ketone strips and you can test the ketones coming out of your urine every day. If you're worried about it, you don't even get close to the amount of ketones you need to get ketoacidosis. So, I've looked at that. I've studied it. I have research on type 1 diabetics. I think it's fine to do it. You have to be more careful with type 1 diabetic, taking your insulin properly. But type 2 diabetics, I just don't see it's in the realm of possibility that you can get to ketoacidosis as a type 2 diabetic by fasting, because your body just works better. As soon as you fast for, don't eat for 18 hours, it's an amazing thing how well your body starts using the insulin you have. And it's very beneficial. So I have talked to the diabetic associations. I gave a talk at the national meeting 2 years ago. I had people come with me going, "What are you talking about? You're going to kill people?" No, not at all. And so I gave talks there to I think it was the National Academy of Diabetes Educators. And I gave a talk similar to this to them. It was strictly focused to diabetics. But I gave them the data that I have on diabetes and specifically ketoacidosis, because I thought about that too. Oh my goodness, ketoacidosis. Send people into ketoacidosis? No, because between ketones, high ketones in a person that has insulin, and ketoacidosis is 3 times more. You're not even close to getting into ketoacidosis. So type 2 diabetics of the world, that's half of the country in the United States of adults are either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic. The best thing we can do for all of that is to not eat all day long, eat in a period of time. Do you take insulin, Kirk?
Sorry that I don't know what's wrong with our audio. It keeps blanking out, but I missed the question.
Insulin?
No, I'm on a couple
Metformin?
of oral drugs, metformin plus some other stuff, Januvia, that helps to boost it. But I'm going to have to switch because the blood sugar is not well controlled right now. But
even without,
I think,
when you time restrict fast, you lose weight generally. Even if you don't lose weight, your metabolic system functions better, and you start using the insulin you have better, and your blood sugar comes down. So I've got a number of studies comparing fasting to metformin, and how many people, when they started doing fasting, were able to get off of their diabetic medications, some or completely. And what a huge percentage of medications were reduced when you started fasting.
Interesting.
Are you
So-
could we maybe get some of those studies
Yeah, I'd be
later?
interested.
Yeah, thanks.
Interesting to send some to Kirby.
I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And so I'm not sure how many things you want to read. I can send you my PowerPoint that has dozens and dozens and dozens of them in the PowerPoint. If you want to,
That'd be nice. Yeah,
That's
that'd be
that's
helpful.
probably a good idea. Yeah, send that maybe, and I'll make that available to anybody.
Okay, but I understand the question. It has been a question in my mind. I settled the question 10 years ago or more as I started teaching at diabetic conferences. And I am convinced completely that the whole idea of ketoacidosis really comes from not having enough insulin. And it happens in type 1 diabetics that don't take their insulin because they don't have any. But I just never have seen it happen in a type 2. Other questions, comments?
I had two questions. You mentioned the intermittent fasting where you have 8 hours that you can eat.
6.
Yeah.
You only talked about the 6 hours. You still get benefit from the 8-hour one. And with the nuts, does it matter if they're raw or if they're roasted?
That's a very good question. And I would say, when you look at this one diagram here, and you can kind of see from it that when you don't eat, this is an 18-hour fast, so you're talking about a 16-hour fast. So that just brings you up to here. Do you still make ketones for 2 to 3 to 4 hours? Yes, if you want to eat 8 hours. I mean, just changing from eating 16 hours a day and not eating for 8 when you're sleeping, eating before you go to bed and eating when you get up in the morning. Just changing that from 16 hours of eating to 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating is a huge change for most people. And so even from this data, you can see that it probably does work in the same way. It's just you lose these last 2 hours right here. And so you're getting all of this when you're doing that fasting of just eating for 16 hours. And nuts.
What about nuts? Roasted or raw?
Yeah. Anytime you cook something, it takes some things away. But when you cook things, it makes some things more available. Like a carrot. You can munch on a carrot all day long. And then you can cook the carrot and eat it. No matter how well you chewed it, you get more beta carotene out of the cooked carrot than you do out of the raw carrot. You just can't get to it. You can't chew it well enough to get it. And so raw nuts they're probably beneficial for a number of reasons, but just because of the nutrients they have that last longer. I eat roasted nuts, but I eat a lot of raw nuts too. I have a bag of raw pecans, raw almonds, and sometimes a couple of other ones that I have all the time. And I throw them into smoothies. I just eat them. When I have people come over, we have nuts. The grandkids come over, I make them eat nuts. And now they're used to it. Where's the nuts, Papa? We want nuts. And so best to eat them raw, but eating them roasted is still fun. It's best not to have them oiled and roasted. It's better just to cook them, because it's something I don't have time to get into now, but at my talk, it's 150 slides on fats and oils. And really, it's not the beef fat that's killing you. It's the bottles of oil that you have in the house, the vegetable oil that you have in the house. It's highly processed, and all of the good things are taken out, and it is a highly refined food. So best oil to have, I would say, is pure virgin olive oil, pure virgin coconut oil. Both have lots of good things in them, and the fats themselves are good, but the oil is good. And when you have the bottles of oil, the safflower, sunflower, corn, and soy oil that you have on the vegetable oil, those are ones I think that people consume way too much of. Every time you get something fried, every time you get something baked, every time you get something that's grilled and covered with oil, it's those oils. And those are, in my opinion, generally detrimental.
But some of the nuts already come, they're roasted. That's why I was asking. So you should look for raw nuts more if you can find them.
You can get all of them raw. Generally, almonds are always raw. I mean, I don't know, 90% of the time.
But pecans aren't.
And pecans aren't, but you can. I buy the ones I get in the grocery store here are just plain pecans that are not cooked at all. Pecans more often come cooked, flavored, sugared, covered with something, but you can get raw pecans in any grocery store.
Go ahead, David.
Oh, yeah, Jim, I was just wondering, does fasting include a liquid intake? Or can you still drink liquids?
Actually, that's a very good question, David. You should drink liquids. It has nothing to do with the fasting, but when you're fasting, all of a sudden your body is burning itself up. And if you have toxins in you, they're coming out in you. And so you want to have plenty of liquids that you're drinking. And even coffee in the morning. If you don't add sugar to it, coffee actually speeds up the processes that are beneficial when you're fasting. And so people say, I got to have coffee in the morning. Fine, have the coffee. It doesn't stop anything. It's the sugar or the carbohydrates that stop the fast. So yes, always drink lots of liquids when you're fasting. And I think coffee and tea are fine.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay.
What's the best way to get rid of excess stomach fat?
Exercise? Just kidding.
Exercise, yeah. You know,
hard.
Exercise is always important. It's a key part of a healthy lifestyle, but you can always out-eat your exercise. My brother was like 350 pounds. He was in this bicycling group. They would ride 100 miles and then they'd have a barbecue. Nobody's losing weight because you're eating a barbecue. And so, yeah, to get rid of belly fat, intermittent fasting is an amazing thing that actually helps our not just sugar metabolism, but our fat metabolism. It helps both of them. If you've got diabetic or what do you call it? When you have metabolic syndrome that precedes heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Metabolic syndrome is your LDL is high, your HDL is low, your triglycerides are high, and you have a large waist circumference because you don't want to carry fat in your belly amongst your organs because it's the fat that's metabolized very quickly. And when you start doing some time-restricted fasting, just don't eat all the time. Your body starts breaking that down first. And that tends to be what the pot belly is the fat that's in there within the organs in your intestinal tract. Good question.
Thanks, Jim. I didn't want to hear it, but I do. It's very helpful.
You know, we did some studies 25, 30 years ago with Don Lehman at the University of Illinois. We were working with the zone diet, the 40-30-30 diet, that just looks at carbohydrates, fats, and protein. And we put them on the diet, and then we looked at their muscle mass. When they lost weight, was it muscle or fat? It tended to be muscle and not fat. When we exercised them and put them on the diet, but we made them exercise for 30 minutes a day or something, they maintain their muscle mass completely. It's amazing. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And so to keep your muscles in shape while you're dieting, while you're fasting, while you're losing weight, but if you want to lose fat and not muscle, you have to use the muscle to keep the muscle building itself up. If you don't, you will burn muscle faster than fat. If you just stop eating, just because your body is better able to burn up the protein than it does the fat for some of the reasons we talked about already. But so, yeah, just doing some weight exercise, doing some walking, keeping your muscles in motion will maintain your muscle mass and you'll lose fat. Any other comments?
So this one is a little bit left of field, but there is more than one connection between fasting and prayer in the scriptures. Now, do you have any comments on why fasting might make prayer more effective? Now, this is probably not so easy to answer, but I thought I'd ask it anyway.
You know, that's a great question because I used to think, God, I'm fasting if you're listening to me now, I'm suffering. Yes, son, you're doing
Yes.
good. You're suffering. Good boy.
You're suffering, yes.
It doesn't do that at all. It doesn't do anything to God. It doesn't make things happen better. What it really does is when you tell your body no in this area and you spend
Yes.
more time looking to what God has for you to do, you're more attentive. I mean, I just get so attentive to things when I'm not eating. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm not eating. Oh, what am I going to do? God, what am I going to do? And then it brings you back. It doesn't have to, but it really can bring you back into a place where you can listen better to what God is saying. And so fasting doesn't change God at all. I don't think it does anything to God. It does a lot to us.
Yes, that
You know,
much. Okay.
when we're repenting and, you know, we're sorry for something we've done, fasting fits in with that because, again, whatever we did that we shouldn't have done and we're feeling bad about it, we've repented. And it's not like, okay, I'm going to beat myself up now, God, and make myself suffer. That's not it either. It doesn't, just the suffering part of it is there. You know, I've gotten to the point that,
So, James, actually, what I was actually pointing at was there was I've forgotten which of the Gospels that Jesus made some comments. I mean, the disciples came to him and asked him that they, mentioned that they tried to cast out some demon, and he said, "No, this type only comes out with prayer and fasting." So that's actually what I was getting at. In terms of does fasting somehow increase your ability to focus more on what you're saying to God? I don't know. I'm just, that particular verse is the one that sort of prompted my question.
Okay, so I'm going to change what you think. I think you're thinking about that first. This kind comes not out, but prayer and fasting.
Yes.
It's not talking about the demon coming out. It's talking about the unbelief coming out of them when they pray and fast. And so when you pray and you're fasting while you're praying, what was happening in that situation is that there was, because of their unbelief, and there's a difference between faith and unbelief. And the whole idea of how do you get rid of this unbelief to be able to get to have this to happen? Fasting helps because it helps us focus on what God would have us do, and it gives us more strength. When I fast, I haven't fasted long. I fasted for like 5 days. It's the longest. I haven't gone on a month fast or anything. But when I fast for a period of time, I get stronger. I'm more confident in God. I'm more confident in everything because I'm able to do this, and I'm fasting. I'm telling my body no. And when I'm hungry and I'm not doing, what am I doing? I'm reading the Word. I'm studying the Word. So I think in that scripture, it was actually the unbelief. It's not necessarily
it's not necessarily the demon. Interesting. I've never heard that explanation before, but that's okay.
I've heard that 20 years ago, and I started thinking about it then. I think that's really it. Is getting the demon out, but getting the unbelief. Why is the demon still there if they're praying? Well, they don't have enough belief to get it out. It's their problem. It's not God's problem. God isn't. He's supposed to do something. He's done everything. He's doing absolutely nothing now, unless we believe. I mean, he's done. Jesus finished. He hung his head and said, "It is finished." At that point, he had done everything. He's not doing anything else. It's after us to get a hold of what he has already done. And in those disciples, I think they had nothing. They had the Old Testament, and they're getting all this. In 3 days, I'm going to rise. You're going to do what? I'm going to come back in. You're going to do more than me. Do more what than you? You're going to do the same things I do. You're going to do too. Really? We're going to do that too? Yeah. I mean, they went through all this stuff, and then he dies, and they go, "What the heck? This thing's over." And they go away.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, something happens. Oh my goodness! And now they start thinking about all the things he's been saying, and it fits in with this. Fasting is just so important in my life. It has been over the past, 30, 40 years, to get my mind in a place where I can receive from God the things that he's already done for me and be able to do the things he told me to do already. And I get the power to be able to do them. Why? Because I'm thinking about him. I'm trusting in him. I'm going, boy, is this cereal good. I love eating this steak. This is really great stuff. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not eating, and I'm thinking about him and what am I supposed to do? What has he already done? And how can I put those two things together? I think that's what fasting does.
Okay.
I have a question, Jim. I really appreciate this chart where you show about A, B, and C, and the effect of the different style, or at least B and C style, on the increase of ketones. And as far as this time restricted feeding, I wonder if there's an age group limitation that you don't want to do it when you're too young, or can you comment on that?
Yeah, I don't think you want to do it. This is my rule of thumb. If you're still growing this way, you don't want to be fasting. If you're looking at children, they shouldn't be fasting. Fasting food, they can fast other things. They can fast electronics. I'm not going to touch this all day. What? I can't make it. I wouldn't survive. Well, so you can fast things, but fasting on food, I don't think it's good for young children, for growing children. Now, when you get to be late teens, yeah, that's when you might want to start it. Is it good all the way through elderly? I'm 68. I think I'll be doing this when I'm 88. I want to do it more because the things that it does are so beneficial for older adults. And I can't think of it. There's got to be a time when fasting is bad, because everything is bad at some time, nothing is good all the time, but fasting seems to be. And I can't find a disease condition where you shouldn't. If you're starving, then I wouldn't fast. If you haven't eaten for like 3 months and you're in a country, you have no food, that's not the time to say I'm going to fast. You haven't been eating anything anyway. So that time you wouldn't want to do it. But I can't think of a disease state where I wouldn't want to do it, at least time restricted. And that is just not eating all the time and giving your body a break, because your digestive system takes so much energy to digest food, especially certain kinds of foods. And if you just don't spend all that energy digesting food, you've digested it, you've assimilated, and now you give yourself a good 6 hours to use it, to just make things, to have your body function, not worrying about having to spend energy to break down more food. So
Okay,
yeah, I think older is great.
Okay, good. I got that. So I think one starts after 30, that should be pretty safe, right? One has stopped growing.
Yeah, I think it's even younger. And people in their 20s, I think it's fine to do this kind of eating. I wouldn't, time restricted feeding is what it says here. It doesn't even say fasting. It says time restricted eating. That's really not fasting the way we think about fasting. It's just you're shrinking the amount of time in the day that you eat is beneficial. I mean, it's just so good for our body to eat, to digest, to assimilate, and then to go for a period of time where your digestive system isn't doing anything for a period of 6 hours, 8 hours.
Thank you. So sort of a corollary to that question is, can you compare the benefits of B and C on this chart? If one were to do, say, 1 day of fast a week, like B, a week, okay, versus doing the time restricted feeding C, what is the benefit of ketones? Because I can see that on a given day basis, it's like this, but then, you're doing it over a week, right? So can you comment on
Sure.
these
so
two
this
types?
Top one is what we've done for the last 60 years.
Right.
And we've been making none. And so if 1 day a week we do this and get this shot for this, like 18 hours here, where you're making ketones, your body needs stress. It needs to be stressed by this kind of stress or by water. I mean, to go into hot water and then go into cold water, that stress makes your body pick up. If you've ever jumped into a cold pool, instantly your brain is going at 135%. And you go, this is great, I'm freezing. That kind of stress does good because it gets your body to change. That's what this is putting, in a way, it's putting stress on your body because you're not getting any food. And it's going to go, what am I going to do? It's got to go into this massive mode for 24 hours of surviving without getting any food in. And so, and looking back at all those things that the ketones do, this is just an amazingly beneficial 18 hours of your body being able to use the ketones. So I really can't say, so that's good. Doing this every single day, And I have never seen a study. That's a very good question. I don't have a study to give you an answer on that one. Which
Okay.
one is better? I almost think that this time restricted eating, feeding is very beneficial because every single day you have a period of time where you make ketones and your body's doing that, but it's not making a lot. This, 18 hours of a whole bunch of ketones is extremely beneficial to do it once a week. That's what an amazing thing when you've been doing this for the last 60 years and not doing any ketones. So, yeah. So which one is better? I really can't say. I don't know.
Okay. So just a clarification of B and C. I think you mentioned it earlier that when you do the time restricted for 18 hours, in the beginning, nothing happens, and then it starts happening, right? And so it doesn't, the amount of ketones you produce is not high. It's sort of like moderately high, maybe medium. But then on this 1 day fast, you 1 day fast for 18 hours, and it goes up almost to the very high. So why is it that you're able to go to that high versus the time restricted feeding, which is also 18 hours? I'm a little bit confused.
Well, so this is, this is 1 day and you stop eating at 8 o'clock at night. And then you're really not going, so you're going 18 hours here. But in this, you go 18 hours. I mean, here you're talking about the last meal. You go 18 hours and you're just here. You're going 18 hours again here. And so here's where that first 18 hours stopped with this one here. But you're going on another 12 hours. And so it's during that time that you're building up the extra ketones.
Got it. Got it. I misinterpret this when you start, fasting, which includes the sleeping time.
Right.
I think Ben has a question also. Ben?
Yeah, I have a question. Back a number of slides, you had a comparison of the different types of meats. And in one column, you had ostrich. And I'm curious about your perspective on ostrich. And I'm asking it because Hugh Ross has been an advocate of ostrich for a variety of reasons, including health. So I wonder if you could comment on, how good is ostrich from a nutritional standpoint?
Well, that is a good question, and I have never been wrong with this answer, and it is correct every single time. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. I've never really looked at ostrich meat, so I can't say. I know Hugh has. He and I have talked about
I can testify that is absolutely delicious, and I hope it's true what Hugh says. I would love to see an ostrich revolution where we move from beef to ostrich, but we'll see.
Well, with that, I'm going to arbitrarily say that our meeting needs to end now. It's 9 o'clock our time, and it's 11 o'clock, I believe, Jim's time.
Yes.
So, Jim, could I ask you to close our meeting with a word of prayer?
I'd be happy to.
All right.
Father, we are so grateful and we're thankful for your goodness. Lord, you've provided everything we need for life, everything we need for godliness, and it's already here. Lord, I just pray as Paul prayed that you open the eyes of our understanding so that we may know the joyous expectation of your call. What are the riches of the glory of our inheritance as saints? And what's the surpassing greatness of your power to us as believers? Father, open our eyes to see that what you've done for us and how we need to respond to that and how we need to be able to use the things you've already done. You've done it all, Lord, and you've done an amazing thing for us. And I think so many times in my life, I've sat and asked you for this and pleaded for things, and that never worked. And so, Lord, I thank you right now for just opening us up to be able to see the things that you've already done, that we can apply them and do what you would have us to do in the world with all that you have done. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.